Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give folks another minute to join, and then we will get started. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session, How Public Libraries Can Better Serve People with Developmental Disabilities or Any Other Type of Disabilities. My name is Tor Loney. I am a Library Development Specialist here with the New York State Library. I want to share a few housekeeping reminders. Microphones will be muted for this webinar, so please ask questions via the chat or the Q&A. If the screen that is being shared isn't formatting correctly on your screen, select Fit to Screen under View Options. We will be asking you to complete a brief survey at the end of this program. If you could take a moment to fill this out afterward, that would be great. This webinar is being recorded and a viewing link will be sent to everyone who registered. The link will not be oh, no, that's not true. So for this one, we in fact will be captioning this. So we'll send out, sorry, we'll be sending out an uncaptioned link immediately after, but then we will also be captioning this and putting it up on our website for the long term. So this is something that will be there for folks to view and to share. If you have any technical issues, please send a chat message to me. I will be assisting with technical needs. And now I am very happy to introduce Lisa DeSalvo Salemi with the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you, Tor, and thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is, as Tor said, Lisa DeSalvo Salemi, and I'm the Director of Advocacy for the Office of Advocacy at OPWDD. I'm here with a couple of my colleagues, as well as Frank, who will introduce themselves shortly. They are going to provide an overview and provide a presentation on Americans with Disabilities Act and disability awareness training. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank to introduce himself.
Why, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Frank Camerata, and I am the Executive Director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities. Erie County is one of only 6 counties in all of New York State that offers an office like ours. We provide ADA assistance, guidance, as well as focus making sure that services in Erie County are accessible and inclusion. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to my very good friend and longtime best friend, let's just say, BJ Stasio.
Thanks, Frank. The check is in the mail. Oh. The check is in the mail, Frank. My name is BJ Stasio. I'm a peer specialist too in the Office of Advocacy and Peer Support Unit, and I'm honored to be here. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I'm gonna pass it over to Christopher Burstler.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Burstler. I'm a peer specialist with New York State Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. I am based in the downstate region, and I am really looking forward to being with you all today.
Wonderful. Thanks for the introductions. And then Christopher, I will turn it over to you again to provide an overview of the Advocacy and Peer Support Unit.
Okay, well, a little bit of a background on me, Lisa, BJ, and our unit is the Advocacy and Peer Support Unit within OPWDD. We fall directly under the commissioner and her suite. The unit has 3 main purposes. The first purpose is direct advocacy, which is and support for individuals receiving OPWDD services, both within the agency as well as in the community and through voluntary service providers. We also focus heavily on policy advising, and advocacy. And we also have a focus on training, such as what we're doing today, but more consistently training new hires within the agency on being person-centered and using language that puts those we are supporting at the forefront. A few key examples of work that we are currently doing or have done are us peer specialists. Let me just step back a moment. Lisa is the head of the unit, the director. BJ is our peer specialist too. We have a Chester Finn from the Capital Region, who is our client and family advocate. Myself, who's a peer specialist from downstate. A Joshua Mosky, who's a peer specialist from Long Island. And a Marilyn Statter and Elfie Kazundi, who are peer specialists from the Finger Lakes region. Some of the key work that we've been doing is not limited to participating on the dais at the Commissioners 507 forums this past year. I mean, this in the recent months, we also are active at conferences such as the SANES Self-Advocacy Association of New York State statewide conference, and where us peers were on a panel with the commissioner and also helped facilitate a conversation on the strategic plan. And that just goes to show there is a lot of like high level work, but also like personal, like direct work. And some examples of that are just connecting with people as peer specialists. The focal point of what we do is using our own lived experiences to connect and build trust and safety and to empower and support those we are working with. And we do that through providing support emotionally. We can help with providing direct self-empowerment advocacy skills building, and we can also help people more hands-on who need more of that hands-on approach. And I will now turn it over to Frank Camerata, who will be going into detail on the Americans with Disabilities Act, in which we just celebrated the 35th anniversary of this past Saturday. Frank?
Thank you very much, Christopher. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that this past Saturday, as we talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act, this past Saturday, July 26th, 35 years ago in 1990, President George Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act into law. And when he signed this into law, one of the things that he said was, "Let the shameful walls of exclusion come tumbling down." And many of you, hopefully some of you, know that reference. That's a reference to when the Berlin Wall came tumbling down. And I got the thumbs up from my friend BJ, because people with disabilities have worked very hard. They worked very hard to get this law passed. They did a lot of things to get this law passed, and it has worked out. It is civil rights legislation for all people with disabilities. And the four focal points are equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency. Those are really the four tenets of it. I can tell you though that 35 years on, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of issues with regard to equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency. People with disabilities still struggle with all four of those things. Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide. The Americans with Disabilities Act is actually broken up. We have 4 titles here, but the Americans with Disabilities Act is broken up into 5 different titles. You all work at libraries. If it is a public library, if there are public funds being focused on your library, then you could fall under Title I. Again, if you work in a public library that receives public funds, you could be. You also work under Title II, which is state and local governments. And whether you work for if it's a governmental library or not, it would still fall under Title III because it is a public accommodation. It is a facility that is open to the general public. So any facility open to the general public falls under Title III and must be accessible. Title IV is all about telecommunications. All of the cell phones that we all use, the cell phone makers, they need to make sure that what they're providing are fully accessible. And I'm sure that in the end here, BJ and Christopher would agree that the cell phone has made a world of difference for people with disabilities in our world right now. And then Title V is the miscellaneous category. Anything that doesn't fall under Titles I through 4 falls under Title V. So, Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide. Did I? Oh, sorry. So under Title I, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they came up with a definition, a very specific definition for people with disabilities, which is a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. And believe it or not, right now, all of you who are watching this, all of you who are listening to this, all of you who are paying attention to the words that we are saying right now, those are all different types of life activities. So if you are a person who may have difficulties with any one of those, you may be a person with a disability. Understanding that it's not always you are a person with a disability, but you may be a person with a disability. There's a lot of wiggle room within the Americans with Disabilities Act. So a person with a disability, it falls under a 3-pronged definition. It is somebody who has that physical or mental impairment. It may also be somebody who has a record of an impairment, and that record is gotten from your medical provider. And then the 3rd prong is being regarded as having such an impairment. And unfortunately, sometimes businesses, I want to say supervisors, sometimes they make a mistake and they label somebody as having a disability when they do not have a disability. And when they make that mistake, it could be very detrimental to an organization because that organization then determines that you now have a disability under the definition because that's what the EEOC says. So if somebody loses their job and they say, hey, I was determined as having a disability, but yet I don't necessarily have one, chances are pretty good that the EEOC is going to say, well, okay, we need to look into this. So Lisa, on to the next slide. Part of Title I, part of the employment piece is all about reasonably accommodating employees to be able to do the work that they do. There are a couple of employment laws, a couple of very important employment laws. The ADA is one of them. FMLA is the other. The ADA is really focused on how can we make sure that somebody is able to do the work that they need to do. And reasonable accommodations are effective adjustments made to a job or public accommodation that enable a qualified person with a disability to participate in their community. They are qualified because I gave that definition just a couple of minutes ago. If you fall under that definition, you are now qualified. So there's a lot of different things that people can do, that businesses can do to reasonably accommodate their employees. And I say this also because it's not just employees, but it's also the people who come visit your business, your library in this situation, your library. How can we reasonably accommodate people with disabilities to enable them to take advantage of the services that we are providing? We need to make sure also that if somebody comes up to you and says, I need assistance or I need help with, they may be asking for a reasonable accommodation without using the term reasonable accommodation, because they may not know the terms reasonable accommodation. Many of you on this call today may never have heard of the term reasonable accommodation, but you had people come up to you and say, hey, I need assistance with getting a book off a shelf, or I need assistance with looking information up, or I need somebody to be able to read information to me because unfortunately I'm not able to read. Those are types of reasonable accommodations that a library can make. And Lisa, on to the next slide. So there are a number of different types of disabilities, and we're just going to kind of scratch the surface here. But starting with emotional disabilities, people who have mental health diagnosis, people who have physical disabilities, people who have learning disabilities, people who have intellectual developmental disabilities, and people who have sensory disabilities. And I'd like to point out that many of the patrons who come into your library, they may have a physical disability. They may be somebody who uses a wheelchair. They may be somebody who's blind, visually impaired, and they use a white cane to get around. But many of your patrons, they may have a mental health diagnosis, or they may have a learning disability. You can't see that in their face. You can't see that in who they are presenting. So keep in mind that at any time, somebody with a disability may be coming into your library. Lisa? So now we'll talk about disability awareness training, and we'll just again scratch the surface on emotional disabilities and types of emotional disabilities. There are affective disorders like depression and bipolar. There is schizophrenia. There are anxiety disorders such as panic attacks, phobias, obsessive compulsive disorders. There are people who have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders. There are people who have attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD. And there are people who have eating disorder. Some etiquette tips for those, keeping in mind that, again, most of those are invisible disabilities, but 1 in 4 persons will be affected by a mental health diagnosis at some point in time. You may want to just recognize that you need to help with some different coping skills. You may have to help this person out. You may need to ask if you can provide assistance. Always remember to stay calm and be supportive of the person. Lisa? Some physical disabilities include cerebral palsy, stroke, amputation, severe arthritis, muscular dystrophy, and multiple sclerosis. And again, we have some etiquette tips. Remember, please, when you see somebody with any one of those disabilities, don't discount what a person has to say based on their appearance, okay? Don't worry about asking someone to repeat themselves. Listen very carefully. If somebody who has cerebral palsy and has a difficulty with speech is speaking with you and you don't understand them, there's no problem in saying, hey, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Could you please repeat yourself? Listen very carefully to the words that are coming out of their mouth the next time. Try to catch phrases. Try to catch specific words so that you can respond. And if you don't understand, ask them to repeat themselves again. It's okay. It's not a problem. Lisa? Some types of learning disabilities. Skills affected with people who have learning disabilities include reading, writing, listening, speaking, reasoning, and math. Some common diagnoses of learning disabilities include attention deficit and ADHD. And believe it or not, I'm sure you've seen it in social media. I'm sure you've seen it if you're watching television. But there are a number of people who you know on a very regular basis who have a learning disability. Specifically, Simone Biles, the gymnast from the Olympics. Thomas Edison, that person who invented so many great inventions in our country. The light bulb, right? He's a person with a learning disability. Trevor Noah, Emma Watson. These are just people who have learning disabilities. I will tell you that Tom Cruise, everyone knows who Tom Cruise is. You've probably seen about 5 or 6 of his movies. Tom Cruise has never, ever read one of his movie scripts. He has them read to him because he has a learning disability. Lisa? Intellectual developmental disabilities. They appear before age 22. I have here likely to continue indefinitely. BJ, from what I understand, there isn't a cure for intellectual or developmental disabilities. Am I correct?
You are correct, Frank, and that's okay.
So yes, so intellectual developmental disabilities, they will continue indefinitely. They do require 3 substantial functional limitations to be diagnosed, such as a need for self-care, a need for language assistance, a need for learning assistance, mobility assistance, self-direction, and the capacity for independent living. Some etiquette tips. Please remember this. This is very, very important to me. As I explained, I'm the director of the Office for People with Disabilities for Erie County. But before this, I worked for a local nonprofit human service agency, and I did that for 19 years, assisting people with developmental disabilities. And it always upset me when someone came into a residential program or a day program that I was working in. Somebody said, "Oh, hey, how are the kids today?" These people are adults, and they need to be treated like adults. Okay? They're not children. They are adults. They're obviously, yes, there are children who have developmental disabilities, but in general, if you see an adult with a developmental disability, please don't refer to them as kids. Okay? Remember, please speak to the person, not their companion. A lot of times they will have a companion, they will have an aide, they'll have somebody with them helping them to perform maybe some personal assistance. If you're having a conversation with the person, have the conversation with the person, not with their aide. Okay? Make sure that you maintain full eye contact with the individual. Again, not with their aide. And going back to, if you don't understand what they're saying in response, ask them again. Use clear sentences with simple, concrete words. Use plain language. We refer to it as plain language, okay? It's a good thing. Be patient. Allow time for people to answer questions and give people time to adjust to new situations. If you ask them a question, understand it may take them time to figure out an answer. Give them that time. Thank you, Lisa. So now we have sensory disabilities, which include visual impairment and blindness, and deaf and hard of hearing. And I first want to say that we're going to speak about people who are blind and visually impaired. For people who are blind, visually impaired, identify yourself before making physical contact, like a handshake. Say, "Hi, I'm Frank Camerata, and my hand is out on the right-hand side." Offer your arm as an assistance. Read all the information out loud to the person. And then we talk about service dogs. Never pet a service dog. Service dogs are working, okay? Always walk on the opposite side of the dog and announce any obstructions. And if you need to say, you need to turn right here, you need to turn left here, or there's a column in front of you, that's okay. But please understand too that people who have service dogs, they have service dogs for a reason. And those dogs were trained to perform a specific task to assist those individuals. Lisa? And now we have people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And I would like to say that as we talk about people who are deaf and hard of hearing, we talked about people who are visually impaired. People who are deaf and hard of hearing, they don't like the term hearing impaired, because people who are deaf and hard of hearing, people who are deaf, they don't view themselves as a person who has a disability. They use American Sign Language. What I'm speaking to you right now is English. What I'm speaking to you again is their second language. Okay. Their primary language, a person who's deaf and hard of hearing, their primary language is American Sign Language. Their secondary language is what I'm speaking to you. In this, there is Spanish, Spanish Sign Language. They're all different kinds of sign languages, but primarily this is, English. English is their second language. So for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, get their attention respectfully. Tap them on the shoulder, wave your hand. You can flick a light, okay, but do it respectfully. Face the person when you speak. Don't go sideways. Don't talk when you're behind their back. And please don't shout. If you shout at a person who's deaf and hard of hearing, they're not going to hear you anymore. They're not going to hear you any better. And rephrase, don't repeat. Lisa? And just like the others, see the person first, not their disability. Don't make assumptions of a person's abilities. Get to know the person. See the person in context of their community. And work with families and staff if it's necessary, but primarily work with the person with the disability. If the person with the disability comes into your library, work with them. If they're with a staff person or with their family member, still work with the individual with the disability first. Ask before you assist. Don't assume that they want help, and be very sensitive about physical contact. If somebody is using a wheelchair, don't grab their wheelchair. Okay, that wheelchair is a part of them. It'd be like me grabbing somebody's purse and saying, hey, do you mind if I look at this? It's not acceptable. Lisa? Some language to avoid. Many of these words you'll see here. I'll use them. Idiot, dumb, imbecile, moron, feeble-minded, handicap, wheelchair-bound, crippled, spaz. Really, the first 6 that I mentioned here, those are all medical terms that doctors used to use. They're not good language. We don't want to hear people using that. And we certainly don't want people to use the R word. I don't have to say the R word in front of you. Hopefully you will know what I'm referring to, okay? But it's important. The language that you use means a lot. Lisa? So now I'll go on and talk about the Erie County, the library that we have here in Erie County. We have I think it's 38 libraries. I don't work for the library, but we have, I believe, 38 libraries here in Erie County. Our central library is located downtown. But before I begin this section on the library and what the we have a specific assistive technology space, I would like to mention and pay condolences or give condolences to the Erie County Library, because Erie County Library, a couple of weeks ago, we lost the director of the Erie County Library, and his name was John Spears. So if anyone knew him, you have my condolences. Please remember him today. So Erie County Library has an assistive technology room, in which they've had for a long time. Lisa, you can change. You can see the signage. Oh, there we go. You can see the signage at the top, and there's signage on the front of the room, and there's a lot of really incredible devices that are available to patrons who have a disability. Go ahead, Lisa. It was updated and improved in August of 2014 with all brand new equipment. A safety upgrade was completed in 2018, including an intercom system and surveillance camera. It is located on the first floor of our library, and the entrance is fully accessible and adjacent to parking with accessible hang tags or license plates. It is open the same hours as the library. Users must sign in at the public service desk. ID is required. All sessions are 2 hours in length, double the general workstation session. Erie County Central Library has other work sessions there, and people are only allowed 1 hour, but the library allows for 2 hours. Reservations can be made for special projects. Okay, Lisa. Some of the technology that we have a Zoom Text Reader 10, which you see in front of you right now. Go ahead, Lisa. The Zoom Text Magnifier Reader is a fully integrated magnification and reading program tailored for low vision users. The magnifier reader enlarges and enhances everything on the computer screen, echoes typing and essential program activity, and automatically reads documents and web pages and emails. Lisa? We also have what's referred to as Sarah, the standalone reading appliance, which you see in front of you right here. Go ahead, Lisa. Sarah is a self-contained scanning and reading appliance for people who are blind or who have low vision. It is simple to use and quickly converts printed text to spoken text. No computer experience is needed. Read your documents without the need for sighted assistance. Easy to learn, easy to use. Convert printed text to human-like speech in your choice of voices and languages. It has a built-in keypad with brightly colored tactile keys and an audible menu. And you can save files to a USB drive. Lisa? Other assistive technologies that we have a Topaz Enlarger, we have a lighted magnifier, and we have a Niagara Frontier radio reading unit. The radio reading unit, it's that thing that looks like a radio to the left. The lighted magnifier is that white circular object, and the Topaz Enlarger is to the far right, where you see it says press the, and you see how large those letters are. Lisa? A Topaz is a desktop video magnifier that blends practical performance with features and usability. The Topaz offers a standard definition camera with a wide magnification range, perfect for viewing newspaper print, photos, and maps. We also have a Sorensen N-Touch video phone for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. Lisa? Other resources that we have are large print books, ebooks, audiobooks on CD, DVDs with closed caption or video descriptions, databases, subject guides, talking book, and a Braille library. Lisa? The little things mean a lot. This comes from our Erie County Library staff. Friendly staff are ready to help. And I can tell you that the Erie County Central Library staff, they are super friendly and they are always very willing to help. Call ahead if you plan to visit. The number we have listed, in case you're ever in Buffalo or in case you're ever looking for information, 716-858-8900. The library has accessible family restrooms, and we have assistive listening devices, and service animals are welcome, subject to the same code of conduct as their owner. Lisa? And we'll go on to the next piece.
Thank you so much, Frank. And we're going to turn this over to BJ Christopher. There were some questions that we developed to prompt a discussion. Okay, so question number 1 is, how can library welcome people with disabilities? And I'm going to turn it over to BJ to answer that.
Well, how a library can welcome people with disabilities is just treat them as people, because my disability doesn't define me, it enhances my humanness. I always say when doing presentations like this, and I just want to be treated as a person. You know, that's how you can welcome people, and don't make a big deal if things are in our way. I'll just politely ask you to move it if it's in the way, because sometimes carts are left in the way, or sometimes I'll figure out how to go around it. So just treat them as people, and that's who we are. So.
And BJ, if I may add from the ADA piece, because you put something in, you just mentioned something perfectly. You know, from the ADA, you need to make sure that you have 36 inches of space between tables and chairs and desks, and so that the person who uses that mobility device, they can get through there.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Forgot about that. That's very good. That's why you're you, Frank. That's why I love you so much.
Thank you, BJ and Frank, for answering that. And the next question, what are ways libraries can improve their buildings or collections to be more accessible, BJ?
Well, when you're going to improve your buildings or make their collections more accessible, and this is why I love knowing Frank for as long as I've known Frank, because if there's things that need to be improved in Western New York, and Frank hears about something going on, he'll call like town hall meetings with whatever entity we're talking with, the library, whatever entity it is, and get our input as a disability community. Now, it can be those who are deaf or hard of hearing, the entire disability community, not just those with physical disabilities, because it's good to get all of us together so we all can talk to make our community accessible, because libraries and the knowledge that are in the libraries are a part of our community and should be more accessible. And one thing I would suggest, because I am sometimes very independent and very stubborn, and I would like to see reachers. So if there's a book that I know I can safely get off a shelf that I can't reach, I would like to see a reacher be available for me so I can grab that book rather than have to ask for help. Now, I don't mind asking for help, but I just like to get the book and go about what I'm doing. And one thing I love about our library is they are very, very helpful. Like, I had a project I was doing for when I went to Willowbrook. I had a button. I wanted a button to be made of me and my mother, because my mother was at Willowbrook and they had a button maker, and this was the last minute thing that I decided to do. And I got a friendly reminder from somebody who uses the button maker, and it worked out really well. And I'm glad I got that button made, because it was really important for me to do that. And the staff was very patient, understood what I needed, because I was kind of nervous. I wanted it to be perfect, and they understood that. So they helped me all through the process, and that was very nice. And just by being welcoming and understanding that disabilities present themselves differently for each person who has one, and some people could have an invisible disability. So just be mindful of that, because we're not going to have a neon sign that says, I have a disability, pay attention. Because some of us have enough attention brought to us by what we need to maneuver in the community to make sure we're a part of the community. So that's my advice with that.
So BJ, I'm gonna jump in again if it's okay.
Yes, Frank, it's always okay. I love you, dude. Go ahead.
What are ways libraries can improve their buildings or collections to be more accessible? Honestly, library directors, the head of maintenance, they should walk around their library and really start with the parking lot. Go into the entryway. Go into your library. Are there tables that need to be moved? Are there collections that are, like as BJ said, are there collections that are too high up? Are there accessible parking spots outside available for a person with a disability who just drove to your library? There's a lot of different things. What I would suggest is, if you would, you could check out ada.gov, and they'll give you a list of things that you could go and look at and kind of research and figure out if your library is fully accessible. And got to be honest with you, we are 35 years in from the Americans with Disabilities Act. Your library should be fully accessible at this point.
Thank you, BJ, and thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank, for the words of wisdom. That's why I love hanging with you, because I learn something new every time we're together.
Chris,
BJ,
first, anything you want to
so-
add to that question?
Sorry, just if I could just interrupt really
Uh-huh.
quickly, just because we had a question about something that you just shared, BJ. Someone asks, what's a reacher and are there specific ones available?
A reacher is a device that is like a longer version of my arm. It has a grip at the end to grab something. Like if I were to drop something on the floor right now, I would go grab my reacher, and there are many different kinds of reachers. You can find them cheaply on Amazon now. I have a nice one. It comes in half so I could fold it up and take it with me everywhere, or just hang it from a hook in my apartment so I can use it to pick up things or grab a book. Like I do that. Like if something's too high, like I'll use it to grab a plate. Now I'll grab a plastic plate with that because I don't want the heavy plate to break, but I'll use it in my kitchen to grab a plate if they're too high up. And that's what I use it for because I can't reach everything if it's too high up. So rather than ask for help, I choose to use a reacher or a grabber. They're called many different things, but those of us who know what they are call them reachers, and they're available at drugstores. They're available on Amazon, and they're very cheap to get. They're not expensive at all. So I would consider making that available for use.
Awesome,
Great.
BJ. Thank you. And folks, please keep the questions coming in the Q&A and in the chat. We will have a portion for questions. So I'm recording all those questions and we'll be sharing those with the panelists when we get to that portion shortly.
Great. Thanks, Tor. All right, the next question, Christopher. What can librarians do to communicate better with people with disabilities?
There are a few things that come to mind. First thing is, do not over assert yourselves in to offer help or assistance. If somebody clearly needs help, like don't be afraid to ask and say, may I help you? Or is there any way I can support you? But as somebody who is disabled myself, both physically and with mental health, neurodevelopmental challenges, I would preface that it, um, I'm being asked in a way that feels natural and equal about needing help can really go very far. Like if I personally sense that somebody is asking because they think I am disabled, I'm more likely to be uncomfortable or triggered than if somebody just goes about it in a way that just seems genuine and like a natural like concern. Like don't be afraid to express concern on that note or that you think somebody needs help. But with me personally, just give me one moment to grab my thoughts. Um Secondarily, I would say um be be patient. Try not to be rushed when somebody is communicating with you. Just because somebody may not seem like they have a difficulty communicating, that does not mean that they are not having issues communicating. They could have conditions like neurological, mental health, etc., that are internally in an invisible way causing difficulties to get to the point where they can articulate and advocate for themselves effectively. So I would say um ask, don't do whenever safe and feasible. Give options to remain to keep the person engaged and offer to help as a collaboration, not as a do for you. Like how can I For example, some verbiage you could use could be how can we best support you, or could what can I do to help you, etc. Also, like options, for example, like I go by a rule of thumb to give 3 options or choices to maintain agency and autonomy and keep the individual feeling in charge. Because as people who are disabled, or as I like to say, uniquely abled, or having unique abilities, we are not incompetent. We are not unintelligent. We just, we may seem that way to society, and that's a significant issue and causes me a lot of distress, as well as other people who are uniquely abled. Like, we are the same as all of you. We are your equals. We are your peers, like I mentioned in my chat comment, and we deserve and have the right to being treated the same as somebody who appears able-bodied. And just because you appear or don't appear able-bodied doesn't necessarily mean you are or aren't able-bodied. So I'll leave it there with question 3.
Thank you, Christopher.
You're welcome.
Next question is, what kind of programs can libraries plan and how can they be more accessible so that everyone can participate?
A couple of things, and one of these, and these are 2 ideas that came up in collaboration between Lisa Salome, my director, and BJ Stasio, the peer 2. The 3 of us felt that sensory, like a sensory story time, or like a sensory friendly environment for those who are sensory impaired. Like, I know with me, I can get sensory overload. If I'm in big crowds of people and there's not much space to move freely, I can get very overwhelmed. So regarding sensory um struggles, just having the ability to, I would say, having a sensory area, whether it's a quiet room or just a room, whether it has sensory items or not, although I would advise for it to, even just a quiet space or a room that folks can go into to escape the hustle and bustle of their environment. Like, I use those rooms sometimes. Like, if I'm in a hospital for something, for an appointment, I'll go into the chapel or the meditation room just for some quiet reflection, etc. And my office, for example, has a room of such. So if you don't have a room for sensory regrouping of such nature, I would encourage that. Be aware that sensory overload, sensory issues are not just of, anybody can have sensory difficulties, even if they don't appear to be disabled at all. And it's something that somebody would normally advocate for, I would say, more than something to be perceived. And also having town halls. Like, if there's a need, for example, for accessibility, like, even though I would hope that libraries are more accessible than not, if there's not like a wheelchair friendly library, have a town hall in like a VFW hall or a place that is accessible to wheelchairs, so that everybody can have equal access to come in to advocate for the changes that need to be made, or that the collective community or identities feel need to be advocated for. And lastly, real quick, I'll just add something from my perspective, and that's that um having programs and plans tailored for the diverse communities and identities and is just very important. But not only that, but I feel like it's should be necessary and required in this day and age. And just know that those you are supporting are, like I said, your equal, your peers. And if you have that mindset, that mentality, that's going to show to those such as myself who are disabled, and it's going to mean a lot to us, as it does to me with when I interact with people. And that I'll leave it there.
Thank
So,
you, Christopher.
Lisa,
go
can
ahead.
I jump in?
Mhm.
So Christopher, thank you. That was terrific.
Thank you.
You know, and you mentioned equal access. It is the ADA is about equal access, equal opportunity for everyone. Okay, but I also want to mention that if you are a librarian and you have a program and you have a flyer, it would behoove you to have a little sentence on the bottom of that flyer that says, if you need a reasonable accommodation, please contact and create a
Mhm.
specific contact. Because if you have an event and somebody who's deaf and hard of hearing comes to that event and you don't have an interpreter, that person could go to the Department of Justice, or that person could file a complaint. If it's one of those things, and that's not what it's about. It is about equal access and equal opportunity, but it's about making sure that that you're also taking care of your community and offering the opportunity for people in your community to come and participate equally.
And I just want to add super quick, having access to Braille is as far and it's with as far of a reach as possible is something that should be done, and I would expect as well.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Christopher. And I am going to end the presentation. I know we are going to open it up to Q&A, but I did want to just make sure we had mentioned if anyone has any questions for Frank or Christopher or BJ, please feel free to reach out with the Office of Advocacy, specifically within the Advocacy and Peer Support Unit. As Christopher had highlighted earlier, we have our advocacy inbox, so feel free to reach out. And Christopher and BJ, if you want to add your email in the chat, so if you are okay with that, so folks have your direct contact information. But if not, please feel free to contact us within the advocacy inbox. And then if you have any questions for Frank, I provided Frank's email. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure they would love if you had reached out. If you have any questions, they'd be happy to help. And then with that, we can open it up to Q&A. I know we just have about 7 minutes.
Thanks, Lisa, and I'll start to share some questions. And folks, I'll let everyone attending know. All of our panelists have been so kind as to any questions that aren't addressed right now, they have offered to answer those. So I will make sure they have all of the questions, and that all of the questions and answers get sent out to everyone who registered today. And so, of course, everyone who's attended here right now. So I'm just going to start from the list, and we'll get where we can get. Does the number of employees affect the qualifications of Title 1 through 4 protections?
That's a very good question. Yes, and the answer is yes. An entity, a municipality, has to have 15 or more employees. So it's kind of a low bar, which is good.
Awesome, thank you. Someone said, I actually had a patron with a speech impediment yell at me because I couldn't understand them. Is there a way to de-escalate this or do this without making a patron angry?
Anyone want to answer that one? BJ, Christopher, Frank?
I'll give it a go. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Remain calm and throughout when you're interacting with anybody across the board, whether they are in distress or have a disability or perceived disability. Don't be afraid to say, hey, like, can you repeat yourself? Like, I find that when I work with those who have communication difficulties, they often would be fine with you asking to repeat as opposed to assuming what they mean. And don't go directly to a staff or somebody else. But if a staff or a friend offers to help, fine. But be creative. You, you could like use a whiteboard or a paper and pen. If they have a device, encourage them to use their device to communicate. And don't be afraid to ask throughout the process.
Thank you, Christopher. And I think it's
Thank you.
important to also note that, being mindful that that may be a challenge that they may encounter every single day of their life. So that frustration, please just remember, don't take it personal. And I think, like piggybacking off what Christopher said, is showing that genuine care and, trying to meet the individual where they are at.
Now I've been there. I've gotten very frustrated with people who couldn't
Mhm.
understand me on more occasions than I can count. So I'm there with all of you.
Thank you. Someone asks, which of these categories would autism spectrum disorder, ASD, fall under? Multiple?
What are the
Well-
categories? I'm sorry.
So this, right. I think this
I was going to say,
during-
I think that's it. Well, it would fall under intellectual developmental disability. I think that's the answer that they're looking for, I believe.
Yes, this was during your presentation, Frank.
Okay.
So thank you.
Perfect.
Sorry for not clarifying. And then sort of following up on that, someone asks, is dementia and Alzheimer's considered a disability as well?
So in the ADA coordinator speak, it can be. Again, is there, if the person who has dementia, dementia or Alzheimer's, if there is a physical, if it's a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a daily life activity. So if there are daily life activities that are substantially limited, it can be considered a disability.
Thank you. Someone asks, lately when I filled out job applications, there is a part that mentions disabilities. That information is voluntary to fill out. If one has an invisible physical disability, should that person be afraid to give out that information in fear of any firing or retaliation of any kind?
So this is a very difficult question. And I can tell you that people with disabilities struggle to find employment. And when a person with a disability finds employment, they are the hardest working people you will ever find because they struggled for so long to get that. They won't take vacation. They won't take sick days. They are going to work their what's off to maintain and keep that job. It is a personal decision, though, for a person with a disability, whether visible or invisible, to let their possible employer know that they have a disability, because it could go both ways. Unfortunately, there are way too many people in our community who still look at people with disabilities and say, "Oh, we don't want anything to do with those people." And I hate to use the word "those people," but that's kind of what people are thinking. They're sitting behind a desk and they look at you like, "Uh-oh, I don't know if I could work with this person." They don't understand that. Those employers don't understand the importance of hiring people with disabilities.
Thank you, Frank. And unfortunately, folks, we are at time, and we can definitely see that there is a huge amount of folks who are committed and invested in doing their best, and many questions still that we haven't gotten to. So thanks to everyone for attending today, for asking these questions, and thank you so much to this incredible team of panelists and presenters for your life of lived experience and professional expertise. It looks like we'll need to be scheduling this again soon, and I think as a recurring event. And thank you so much for offering this. This has been amazing for me and clearly for everyone here. I am just going to drop a few links in the chat, folks. These are upcoming webinars in our Room for Everyone series on libraries and accessibility, recent blog posts addressing accessibility considerations for libraries, and the next session in our Libraries Working with Vulnerable Patrons series that focuses on social work in libraries. So thanks to everyone here, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care, all.
We
care,
appreciate the
everyone.
opportunity. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.